When my own son told me at 68 that I'd become a burden and needed to leave the house for his wife, I learned one thing: betrayal can be fate's greatest gift. A month later, I was sitting on the terrace of my new apartment in Miami, sipping a mojito and watching the sun set over the ocean while my phone buzzed with calls from my son begging me to come back. Not long ago, I thought my life was nearing its end, a quiet, slow fade in the home I loved more than anything. But sometimes life throws you surprises that make you realize it's only just beginning. My name is Anna Miller, and I'm 68 years old. It all started on that sweltering July day when my son Jason and his wife came over for a family barbecue. As always, I'd spent the day preparing, marinating steaks using my late husband Robert's recipe, making his favorite potato salad, slicing fresh tomatoes from our garden. The house was pristine, as it always was. I'd poured my soul into it for 30 years, decorating every room with love. Our home in the Chicago suburbs wasn't just a house, it was my history with Robert. A 2-story colonial with white shutters on blue walls, a front porch with a swing where we'd spend summer evenings. The garden I'd tended for years, Mr. Lincoln roses by the entrance, beds of lavender and basil, an old oak tree under which Jason played as a child. After Robert's death 2 years ago, this house became my anchor, the place where I felt his presence in every creak of the floorboards, in every ray of sunlight filtering through the kitchen curtains. Jason arrived in a new BMW, a gift from his architecture firm for a successful project. Tall like his father, but without the kindness in his eyes. Something had changed in my son over the years. Maybe it was influence, or maybe life had just hardened him. Stepped out of the car like a runway model, perfectly styled hair, a designer dress, $1,000 heels. She worked in PR and always looked like she was posing for a magazine shoot. Her smile was calculated, like everything about her, designed for maximum impact. "Hi, Anna," she said, kissing my cheek and leaving a trace of lipstick. "You look wonderful." A lie, we both knew it. Grief and loneliness had aged me these past months, living alone in that big house. But I kept up appearances because the house needed a caretaker and the garden needed a gardener. Dinner was tense. Jason was distracted, glued to her phone. I talked about my roses, my plans to redecorate the guest room, but it felt like I was speaking to an empty room. After dessert, homemade apple pie from my mother's recipe, Jason cleared his throat. "Mom, we need to talk." Something in his tone made me stiffen. I sat in my favorite armchair by the fireplace, where Robert and I used to spend evenings reading or simply enjoying each other's quiet company. "About what, honey?" Jason glanced nervously at, who gave him an encouraging nod. "Mom and I have been thinking about your future. You've been living here alone for 2 years now. This house is too big for you, and we're worried." "Worried?" I repeated, not following. "Yeah," chimed in, leaning forward with feigned concern. "Anna, you're a wonderful woman, but let's be realistic. At your age, living alone in a house this size isn't safe. What if something happens? What if you fall in the garden or on the stairs?" My heart started racing. I sensed a trap, but didn't yet grasp its scope. "I manage just fine," I said calmly. "I have neighbors, I'm part of a book club, I go to senior yoga." "Mom," Jason cut me off, "it's not just that. This house, it's expensive to maintain. Heating in the winter, repairs, a gardener." "I take care of the garden myself," I countered. "And I have money, Dad's insurance, his pension, my savings." "But why spend it on a house that's too big for you?" His tone was soft but insistent. "There are wonderful places for people your age. Sunset Village in Skokie, it's a delightful community. They have a library, organized activities, medical care." "Community," my voice dropped, but it carried a steel edge. "You mean a nursing home?" "A community for active seniors," corrected. "You'd make new friends, have fewer worries." "And the house, my house." Jason wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, legally the house has been mine since Dad passed. You know that. And I were thinking, well, we could move in here. We're in a 1-bedroom apartment downtown and we're planning for kids." The world seemed to stop. It was true. The house was in Jason's name. Robert had written his will that way, thinking he was protecting our family's legacy. He never imagined our son would evict his own mother. "I see," I said quietly. "So you want me to clear out for you?" "Mom, don't put it like that," Jason said, finally looking at me. "We're doing this for you. At your age, you need to think about safety, practicality." At my age, something inside me snapped. Jason, I'm 68, not 88. I drive perfectly well. I go to the gym. I read without glasses. I cook. I clean. I garden. What's wrong with my age? Anna tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. No one's saying anything's wrong with you. Just be reasonable. This house is meant for a family with kids, and you're here alone. I'm not alone, I exploded. I'm here with 30 years of memories with your father. Every flower in that garden was planted by my hands. The nursery where my son grew up. The kitchen where I cooked thousands of family dinners. Mom, calm down. Jason stood and paced the living room. We get that it's emotional, but you need to be practical. You sell the house, get good money, settle comfortably in Sunset Village. And if I don't want to sell? Silence, Jason, and exchanged a glance. Mom, the house is mine, Jason said firmly. I have the right to do what I want with it. But you can't throw me out on the street, I said, my hands trembling. No one's throwing you out, stepped in, playing negotiator. We're giving you time to prepare, say 3 months, that's enough to find a place and arrange the move. 3 months to leave the home that was my life, to abandon the garden I'd nurtured for 30 years, to give up my independence and move to a nursing home because my own son saw me as a burden. And if I say no, I asked. Jason sighed. Mom, don't make me get a lawyer. I could file for eviction, but I don't want to. I want us to handle this like a family. Like a family. So family means a son kicking his mother out for his own convenience. I stood and walked to the window overlooking the garden. My roses were in bloom, Mr. Lincoln was especially lush this year. Robert always said my roses were the most beautiful in the neighborhood. Fine, I said without turning. I'll think about it. Mom, Jason approached me. I know it's tough, but trust me, it's for the best. At Sunset Village, you'll have your own little apartment. No need to worry about the house, the bills. A little apartment, I echoed, after a 3,000 square foot home. But no hassle, injected fake enthusiasm. Imagine no mowing the lawn, no shoveling snow, no worrying about a leaky roof. I don't worry about the roof. I have a great service company. Mom, Jason's patience wore thin. Stop making this harder. We're not asking you to live on the street. We're offering you a decent place suitable for a woman your age. A woman my age, that phrase again. As if at 68, I'd turned into a helpless old lady incapable of making her own decisions. I understand, I said coldly. You can go. I need time to think. They left, leaving me alone in a house that suddenly felt vast and empty. I sat in Robert's armchair and cried for the first time since his funeral. I cried from pain, from betrayal, from the realization that the son I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed foresaw me as an obstacle to his happiness. But after an hour of tears, something shifted. The pain didn't vanish, but a new feeling joined it, anger. Pure, blazing anger at the injustice of it all. I stood, washed my face with cold water, and picked up the phone. Realtor Michael couldn't believe his ears when I called the next morning. Mrs. Miller, are you sure? This is so sudden. People usually take time to prepare for a decision like this. Michael, I'm absolutely sure. I want to list the house for sale as soon as possible, at the highest price. But you said you'd never sell this house. Plans change. Michael arrived an hour later with an appraiser. They walked through the house, taking notes, discussing the roof, the heating system, the electrical. I stood in the garden, pruning roses, listening to their conversation through the open windows. It's in excellent condition, the appraiser said. The owner clearly took care of it. The garden is stunning. Homes like this in this area go for $450,000 to $500,000. I want $500,000, I said, approaching them, or close to it. Mrs. Miller, the market's not great right now. Michael, this house is worth $500,000. Look at this kitchen. I remodeled it 3 years ago. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, oak cabinets. Look at the bathrooms, marble, a jacuzzi in the master. Look at this garden. How much would it cost to create this landscaping from scratch? The appraiser nodded. She's right. With the right marketing, we can ask $480,000 to $490,000. Done, I said. When can you start showings? A week after and paperwork. After they left, I sat on the porch and called my banker, David. We, known each other for 15 years, he'd managed all our finances with Robert. Mrs. Miller, what a nice surprise. How are you? David, I need details on my finances. Everything, accounts, investments, Robert's insurance. Of course, want to come to the office or should I send a report? I'll come in, today works. An hour later, I was in the bank's office reviewing documents. The numbers were impressive. Robert's insurance 200,000, his pension savings 150000, my own savings 80000, joint investments another 120,000, plus the house at $500,000. You've got quite a nest egg, David remarked. You can live comfortably. David, what if I wanted to live somewhere else, like Florida? Florida, he raised an eyebrow. No state income tax, real estate's cheaper in some areas. Are you thinking of moving? Maybe. What about other states or other countries? David laughed. Mrs. Miller, with this money you can live anywhere. Europe, Asia. Plenty of American retirees move to Portugal, Mexico, Thailand, cheaper living, better weather. The idea took root in my mind like a seed ready to sprout. That evening I turned on my computer and started researching. Florida, California, Portugal, Spain, but something drew me to the coast, to warmth, to the sea, to a life full of sun. Miami, a city where a 68-year-old woman could live vibrantly, where it's warm year-round, where there's culture, art, the ocean, where no one would tell me I'm too old to live on my own. I spent the whole night researching neighborhoods, rental prices, cost of living. By morning, I had a plan. I called Jason at 9 a.m. sharp. Hey, moms, have you thought about our talk? Yes, honey, I've made a decision. The house goes on sale this week. A pause. That's great, Mom. I knew you understand. And I have been looking at options at Sunset Village. Jason, I'm not going to Sunset Village. Then where? That's my business. The important thing is the house will be free like you wanted. But moms, you can't just, where are you going? I said it's my business. By the way, I'm selling the house myself. The money will go toward my new home. What new home? Mom, we need to discuss this. Need to? My voice turned icy. Jason, yesterday you made it clear that at 68 I'm incapable of making my own decisions, that I need to live where you think is suitable. Well, I'm making my own choices. But Mom, we'll see you at the closing to sign the papers. As the owner, you'll need to. I hung up and smiled. For the first time in 2 days, I felt free. The next few weeks were a blur. The house sold faster than even Michael expected. A young couple with 2 kids fell in love with it at first sight. $485,000, almost $500,000 for a house my son thought was too good for his mother. Jason came by a few times, trying to pry into my plans. I was polite but vague, tried to play nice, bringing coffee and cookies, asking about my plans like a close friend. I smiled and changed the subject to the weather. Anna, we're worried, she said during one visit. You're acting so strange. You won't discuss anything, won't share your plans. I said, pouring her tea, did you share your plans with me when you decided I should leave the house? She flushed. That's different. We were looking out for you. Of course, and I'm looking out for myself too. The day before closing, Jason came alone. He sat at the kitchen table where we used to do his homework and tried to talk. Mom, I feel like you're mad at me. Mad? I washed dishes, not turning to him. Why would you think that? You know why? I get that this is emotional, but I'm not doing this out of malice. I'm really worried about you, living alone in this big house. Jason, I finally faced him. Be honest. Were you and really worried about my safety? Or did you just want the house and decide your old mother should make way for your young family? He fell silent, his face betraying an inner struggle. Mom, maybe both. The first honest answer in all this time. Thank you for being honest, so it wasn't just about my safety. But I am worried. You're alone here. What if something happens? What if you get sick? What if I live my life and make my own choices, like I did for 45 years before you were born and 18 years after you left for college? But you were younger then. Jason, I'm 68, not 90. I go to the gym 3 times a week. My blood pressure's great. I drive better than most young people. I read books. I'm learning Italian online. What's old about me besides the number on my passport? He paused, thinking. Nothing, I guess, but the house is big. It's not big for me, it's just right. But that doesn't matter now. Tomorrow it'll belong to someone else. Moms, he took my hand. At least tell me where you're going to live. We're worried. I looked at him, my only child, whom I loved more than life, who'd grown into a selfish man but was still my son. Florida, I said. Miami. Miami, he jumped up. Moms, you don't know anyone there. You've never been. It's a completely different life. Exactly what I need. But that's crazy at your age. At my age, I can do what I want. Tell me, Jason, at what age do people lose the right to be a little crazy? 65, 70, or when their kids decide they're a burden? He paled. I never said you were a burden. No, you didn't, but you implied it. A woman your age, a suitable place, practicality. It all means one thing. You're too old for a normal life, so accept your fate as a frail old lady. Mom, that's not what I meant. Then what? He stared at the table, silent. All right, I said softer. I'm not mad, Jason. I understand you thought you were doing the right thing, but the result is the same. You showed me my old life was over. And you know what? I'm grateful, because now I'm starting a new one. The morning of the closing, I woke at 5 a.m. and walked through the house one last time. Every room held memories. The master bedroom, where Robert and I spent lazy Sunday mornings reading newspapers in bed. The study, where he worked on engineering projects while I sewed or read nearby. The kitchen, the heart of our home, where thousands of family dinners were made, where we sipped coffee in the mornings, planning our day. Jason's childhood room, now a guest room, still bore traces of his youth. A scratch from a model airplane, a paint smudge from a school project we never covered up. But the garden broke my heart most. My roses, nurtured for 20 years, perennial beds, every plant chosen and planted with care. The old oak that remembered the previous owners and under which I'd planned to grow old. I cut 1 rose of each variety and put them in water. These flowers would come with me to Miami. At 10 a.m., we met at the notary's office. The buyers, Tom and Susan Wilson, arrived with their 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The boy was about Jason's age when we moved into that house. Mrs. Miller, Susan said, we're so grateful. This house is perfect for our family. The kids already love the oak tree. Take care of the roses, I said. They need feeding in spring and pruning in fall. Absolutely, I've always dreamed of a garden like this. Signing the papers took an hour. Jason sat beside me, trying to speak a few times, but I focused on the documents. $485,000, plus what I already had, over $1 million total. When it was done, I shook hands with the new owners and wished them happiness in my former home. Tom said I was welcome to visit anytime. I thanked him, knowing I'd never take him up on it. In the parking lot, Jason caught up with me. Moms, when are you leaving? Tomorrow. Tomorrow, he grabbed my arm, but we haven't even said goodbye properly. We haven't discussed how you'll live, where you'll stay. Jason, I said, pulling free, 3 weeks ago, you thought I was adult enough to move to a nursing home. Why am I suddenly not adult enough to handle a move to Miami? That's different. Sunset Village is a structured environment, but Miami is freedom, exactly what I need. Approached, hearing raised voices. What are you arguing about? Mom's flying to Miami tomorrow, Jason said, alone, without telling us. Anna tried to take my hand. That's reckless. You don't know anyone there. You don't have a place to live. I have a hotel booked on the ocean for a month. I'll find an apartment in that time. But that's so expensive, exclaimed. I just got $1 million. I think I can afford a month in a nice hotel. Jason paled. $1 million, but the house, it sold for $485,000. Plus Dad's insurance, his pension, our investments. Yes, Jason, your poor, frail mother turned out to be quite well off. They stood there processing. They probably thought I'd sell the house, give them most of the money for safekeeping. and move into a modest room on their dime, gratefully living out my days. Mom, Jason tried to compose himself, let's not fight. I get that you're upset about our talk, but that's no reason to make such drastic decisions. Drastic? I laughed. Jason, the most drastic decision of my life was agreeing to be a housewife 30 years ago. Everything else is just fixing mistakes. Anna tried another angle. What will the family think? Your friends, they'll think we hurt you. You did hurt me, I said calmly, but it doesn't matter anymore. I'm grateful you helped me realize it's time to start a new life. That evening I sat in the empty living room on the only chair left. I'd sold or given away the rest of the furniture. My suitcases were by the door. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., a taxi would take me to the airport, and I'd fly to Miami. My phone rang all evening. Jason, my sister Carol from Boston News traveled fast. I answered some calls, ignored others. Anna, have you lost your mind? Carol shouted. Moving to a strange city at 68, what will people say? They'll say I'm living my life. But it's madness. What if you don't like it? What if you get sick? What if I love it? What if I'm finally happy? She fell silent. But Jason said you're mad at him. I'm not mad, I'm grateful. He showed me my old life was over. Now it's time for a new one. You don't start a new life at your age, she said weakly. Who decided that at 68 life stops, that all that's left is waiting for death in a nursing home? Well, it's natural. Carol, I'm 68, not 168. I might have 20, 30 years left. I'm going to live them well. The last call was from my doctor, James Holland. Jason had apparently asked him to talk to me. Anna, your son's worried. He says you're making impulsive decisions. Jim, we've known each other 15 years. Is there any medical reason I can't live independently? Well, no, your health is excellent. Any signs of dementia or cognitive issues? Of course not. Then what's the problem? It's not about health, it's that such big life changes. Jim, when I was 25, I moved from New York to Chicago for my husband. No one called that crazy. At 38, we moved to a new house, also fine. Why is moving at 68 a sign of madness? It's different. How? He had no answer. At midnight, I turned off my phone and slept on an air mattress in the master bedroom. Tomorrow, a new life would begin. The plane took off from our at 2:30 p.m. I sat by the window, holding a small bouquet of roses from my garden, watching Chicago disappear below. Somewhere down there was my old house, where the new owners were probably already arranging their furniture. Somewhere down there, my son was trying to figure out what happened to his compliant mother. A young woman with a little girl sat next to me. The girl was drawing in a notebook, occasionally showing her sketches to her mom. Beautiful flowers, the woman said, noticing my roses. From my garden, well, my former garden. Moving. Yes, to Miami. How exciting for work. I left. No, for my heart. At 68, I decided to start a new life. She looked at me with admiration. You're so brave. I'm 32 and scared to change jobs, and you. I realized fear is a luxury I can't afford. I might have 20 years left, maybe 30. I'm not wasting them on fear. We landed in Miami at 5:30 p.m. The humid tropical air hit me like a warm embrace. Palm trees by the terminal, people in summer clothes, the scent of the ocean. It was nothing like Chicago's fall. A taxi took me to the Fontainebleau on Miami Beach. I'd chosen one of the best hotels on purpose. If I was starting a new life, I'd do it in style. Welcome to Miami, the receptionist said. First time here. Yes, and definitely not the last. My room was on the 15th floor with an ocean view. I opened the balcony door and the sound of waves filled the space. Below stretched the beach, people strolling on the sand, kids building castles. The sun set over the water, painting the sky pink and gold. I put my roses in a glass of water and stepped onto the balcony. The warm breeze tousled my hair, the salty air filled my lungs. For the first time in years, I felt alive. My phone buzzed, a text from Jason. "Mom, please call, we're worried." I looked at the message and turned off the phone. I'd deal with my son tomorrow. Tonight, I'd just enjoy the sunset over the ocean. The first week in Miami felt like a dream. I woke at 6 a.m. not to an alarm, but from a desire to catch the sunrise over the ocean. I had breakfast on the hotel's terrace, reading local papers and learning about the city. By 10 a.m., I was on the beach or exploring neighborhoods. First, I discovered South Beach, the famous Art Deco district with trendy restaurants. I walked along Lincoln Road, where artists sold their work and musicians played on the streets. At first, I felt like a tourist, but by the end of the week, I knew I was home. Then came a district of graffiti and galleries where every wall was a work of art. Coral Gables, with its Mediterranean architecture, reminded me of the Europe Robert, and I had planned to visit but never did. Key stole my heart, a quiet island connected to the mainland by a causeway, with stunning beaches and luxurious condos. It had the vibe I was looking for: elegant but not pretentious, calm but not dull. By the end of the first week, I had a meeting with Realtor Maria, recommended by the hotel. "So," Maria said, an elegant Latina around 45, "you're looking for something permanent." "Yes, an apartment with an ocean view, preferably with a balcony or terrace. 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. I want space for guests." "Budget?" "Up to $800,000 to buy, or rent up to $5,000 a month for now." Maria couldn't hide her surprise. "Sorry to ask, but are you sure about the budget? I mean..." "You mean my age?" I smiled. "Maria, I sold my house in Chicago and decided to spend the money on myself. When else am I going to do it?" She laughed. "You're right, I have plenty of retiree clients moving to Florida, but they usually want something modest." "I'm not usual. Show me the best you've got in my budget." We spent the day touring apartments, Avenue modern high-rises with floor-to-ceiling windows, South Beach Art Deco buildings with history, Key luxury condos right on the water. But the apartment that stole my heart was in the Ocean House on Collins Avenue in Bal Harbour, 28th floor, a corner unit with panoramic windows, 2 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a kitchen with an island, a spacious living room, and a 400-square-foot terrace overlooking the ocean. "How much?" I asked, standing on the terrace, gazing at the endless blue. $750,000, or $4,500 a month to rent. "Can I rent for 6 months and then decide on buying?" "Of course. I'll take it." Maria was stunned by how fast I decided. "Don't you want to think it over, talk to family?" "Maria, I'm 68. At my age, there's no time for overthinking. I love this place, it's in my budget. What else do I need?" The rental paperwork took 3 days. I paid the first deposit, signed the lease, and got the keys to my new home. That first night, I slept on an air mattress on the bedroom floor, bought from a nearby Target. But when I woke to the sound of waves, I knew I was home. The next month was spent building my new life. I bought furniture, not heavy like in Chicago, but light, modern. White sofas, glass tables, an ocean blue armchair. On the terrace, I set up wicker furniture and large potted palms. I joined a gym with a rooftop pool, a book club at the local library, and Spanish classes. Miami made Spanish a necessity, not a luxury. I found a yoga studio 5 minutes away and went 3 times a week. Every morning, I drank coffee on the terrace. Every evening, I watched the sunset with a glass of wine. Weekends, I visited the Everglades, famous swamps with alligators, or drove to Key West, the southernmost point of the continental U.S. Life was full but not frantic, calm but not boring. I felt like a young woman, just wiser. Jason called every few days. At first, he was angry, then he begged me to come back, then he tried to convince me I was being irresponsible. "Mom, you're spending Dad's money." "Jason, I'm spending our money on my life. What else should I spend it on?" "But what if it runs out? What if you get sick? What if I'm healthy and happy until 90? What if this money gives me the best 20 years of my life?" "That's not sensible." "Jason, what's not sensible about a healthy, financially secure woman living in a beautiful place, doing what she loves, enjoying life?" He had no answer. Tried a different approach. "Anna, we miss you. The house feels empty without your Sunday dinners. It's not my house anymore, you made that clear. I mean our new house, we moved in last month. How's it going? Well, the payments are pretty high, and repairs cost more than we expected. I smiled. Life in my dream house was clearly more expensive than they'd planned. How's your relationship? A pause. We're going through a rough patch. The house situation, money issues, a lot of stress. I'm sorry to hear that. Anna, could you maybe help us out a bit? We know you got good money for the house, and we thought. I laughed. You want me to pay for the house you kicked me out of? We didn't kick you out, we just thought. You thought right, I needed to start a new life. Thank you for that. After those calls, I'd step onto the terrace, sit in my favorite chair, and watch the ocean. Turquoise water, white yachts, people on the beach. My new life was beautiful. The turning point came in November when I met Isabella at the book club. An elegant woman my age, she'd moved to Miami from New York 5 years ago after a divorce. You know, she said after we discussed a novel, I started a new life at 65 too. Everyone said I was crazy. And now they're jealous. I have a great apartment, interesting friends, I go to the theater, I travel. Last year I went to Italy, this year I'm planning Japan. Travel alone. Why not? I'm comfortable with myself. You. I thought about it. The past 3 months I'd been happy alone, not lonely alone. There's a difference. Yes, me too. Welcome to the Club of Happy Solos, Isabella laughed. Want to join our group? We go to museums or exhibits every Saturday, then hit good restaurants. That's how my new social life began. Isabella, a retired professor from Boston, an artist from Argentina, a retired doctor, a group of vibrant, educated women who didn't see age as a barrier to living fully. We visited the Bass Museum, exhibits in, concerts at the Philharmonic. We dined at top restaurants, tried new cuisines, discussed books, politics, art. Life was rich and engaging. In December, I signed up for watercolor painting classes. I'd always wanted to paint but never had the time. Now, time was all mine. My teacher, a young Cuban woman named, couldn't believe I was starting at 68. Anna, you're so brave. I'm 25 and scared to try new things. Courage comes with age. At 68, you realize you've got nothing to lose. My first paintings were awful, crooked lines, wrong proportions, muddy colors, but they got better with each class. By Christmas, I'd painted a decent landscape, a view from my terrace. Who's this for? Asked. Me, I said, the first painting of my new life. I rang in the new year on my terrace with my new friends. We set a table outdoors, popped champagne, and watched fireworks over the ocean. To new beginnings, Isabella toasted. To being true to yourself, added. To age being just a number, I laughed. We sipped champagne, danced to music from a speaker, laughed like teenagers. At midnight, I made a wish for this year to bring even more discoveries. On January 2, Jason called. His voice was different, not demanding, not judgmental, but lost. Mom, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, honey. How are you? Not great. Mom filed for divorce. I paused. Strangely, the news didn't surprise me. I'm sorry, what happened? A lot, money problems, stress over the house, different views on life. She said I've changed, become angry and greedy. Have you? A long pause. Probably these past few years, I've only thought about money, career, getting ahead, and she's not who I thought she was. What now? I don't know, the house is too expensive for me alone. I might have to sell. In work, I realized I hate my job. The stress, the competition, the constant chase for profit. Jason, I said gently, what do you want from life? I don't know, Mom, honestly. For the last 5 years, I wanted what wanted. Before that, what I thought you and Dad wanted. And what do you want? I want to be happy, to do something I love, to not always think about money, to be better. My heart ached. My boy, my only child, was lost. Jason, do you remember what you wanted to do as a kid? Draw, I wanted to be an architect, but not a commercial one, an artist. To design beautiful homes, not profitable office buildings. What's stopping you? Money, creative architecture doesn't pay much. Jason, how much money do you need to be happy? I don't know. Would you have enough if you did what you love? Probably for a simple life, yeah. Then what's the problem? Mom, you don't start over at 35. I left. Honey, I started over at 68. You think 35 is too late. He fell silent. Mom, can I come visit you? Just for a bit. I need to think, figure out what's next. Of course, honey, come. I've got a guest room with an ocean view. Jason arrived in late January. I met him at the airport and barely recognized him, gaunt, dark circles under his eyes in a wrinkled shirt. My successful son looked like a man who'd lost his purpose. On the drive home, he was quiet, staring out at the palm trees and skyscrapers. Not what I pictured for Miami, he finally said. What did you picture? I don't know, thought it'd be more old-fashioned. Nursing homes, tame entertainment. I left. Jason, Miami's full of young, vibrant people. It's one of the most dynamic cities in America. When we got to my building, he paused in the elegant lobby. Mom, this must be expensive. It is, so what? You're spending too much. On what should I spend my money, Jason? Medical bills I don't have yet, a funeral, or on living while I'm alive? In the apartment, he went straight to the panoramic windows and froze. My God, what a view. Yeah, every morning I wake up to the ocean. Every evening I watch the sunset. And you're happy. Very. He sank into a chair on the terrace and covered his face with his hands. I gave him time, brewing tea and slicing fruit. After a few minutes, he spoke, eyes fixed on the ocean. Mom, I was an idiot. I thought I was looking out for you, but I was only thinking of myself. How convenient it'd be for me and to live in your house. I didn't see how much it meant to you. I sat across from him, holding my tea. Jason, I don't blame you. You did what you thought was right, but you forgot to ask what I wanted. I know, and I'm so sorry. When you left, I realized I didn't just lose the house, I lost you. I thought you'd come back in a couple of weeks, complaining about the heat or loneliness, and we'd be a family again. We're still family, I said softly, but family doesn't mean living for someone else's convenience. It means respecting each other's choices. He nodded, staring at his hands. Left said I'm not the man she married, and she's right. I became so calculating, only thinking about money, status. Now I'm sitting in this amazing apartment, realizing you're living better than I ever have. I smiled. Jason, happiness isn't about money. It's about waking up excited for the day, doing what you love, being free. How did you do it? How did you start over at 68? Because I had no choice. You showed me my old life was over, so I decided my new one would be better. He looked at me with something like awe. Moms, you're incredible. I always thought you were just a mom, cooking, cleaning, gardening, but you're like from another world. Jason, I've always been this way. You just didn't see it. I loved our home, taking care of you and Dad, but that's not all of me. I have dreams, desires, plans, and now I'm living them. What do I do? He asked quietly. I don't know where to start. Start with what you love. You said you wanted to draw, design beautiful homes. Why not try? But it's risky. I'm used to a steady paycheck and office contracts. Did that make you happy? He shook his head. Then take the risk. You're young, you have your whole life ahead. If not now, when? We sat on the terrace until midnight, talking about his childhood dreams, my new adventures, how life can be unpredictable but beautiful. For the first time in years, I felt my son wasn't just my child, but someone I could talk to as an equal. Jason stayed in Miami for 2 weeks. I showed him the city, we walked South Beach, ate at a Cuban restaurant in Little Havana, took a boat ride in Bay. He met my book club friends, and Isabella, with her wit and energy, left a strong impression. Mom, your friends are so cool, he said after dinner with them. They don't age. They don't age because they live fully, and you can too. By the end of his visit, he was changing. He smiled more, joked, even pulled out a sketchbook and started drawing for the first time in years. They were sketches of homes, not the dull office buildings he'd designed in Chicago. These had soul, big windows, terraces, gardens. You know, he said the day before he left, I think I'll go back to Chicago, quit my job, and try working for myself. Maybe start with small projects, find clients who want something special. That's a great plan, I said, and if it doesn't work out, you can always come back. The guest room's yours. He hugged me tight, like he hadn't since he was a kid. Mom, I'm sorry, I was so selfish. It's okay, honey. What matters is you realize it, and we still have time to be a family. Jason flew back to Chicago, and I continued my life in Miami. By spring, I decided I was ready to buy the apartment in Ocean House. Signing the papers, I officially became the owner of my new home with an ocean view, a terrace where I could paint sunsets, and the feeling that I was finally living for myself. My watercolors were improving. My teacher even suggested a small exhibit at a local gallery. I agreed not for fame, but for the joy of sharing my work. Isabella and my other friends became my new family. We planned a trip to Italy for the next summer, Rome, Florence, the coast. I wanted to see real Europe, taste it, breathe it. Jason called weekly. He'd quit his firm and started working on his own projects. It wasn't easy. The first months, he barely made ends meet, but I heard a spark in his voice that wasn't there before. He even sold the Chicago house, saying he didn't want to live somewhere that reminded him of the past. Now he rented a small apartment and was designing an eco-friendly home for a young family. Mom, he said on the phone one day, I'm starting to get what you meant. Living for yourself isn't selfish, it's freedom. Exactly, honey, I'm glad you see it. In June, sitting on my terrace with a glass of wine, watching the sunset, I got a letter from Jason, a real paper letter with a stamp. Inside was a sketch of a house he was designing. It looked like our old Chicago home, but with modern touches, big windows, a terrace, a garden with roses. On the back, he'd written, Mom, this is my first project with soul. I called it Anna's House in your honor. Thank you for showing me how to really live. Love, Jason. I smiled, tears welling up not from pain, but from joy. I folded the letter and looked at the ocean. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and pink. My new life was beautiful, and I knew there were many more sunsets I'd greet with a smile. A year has passed since I moved to Miami. I'm sitting on my terrace, writing these words in a journal Isabella suggested I keep. My watercolor exhibit was a success. I sold 3 paintings and kept the rest as reminders of my journey. Jason visits every couple of months. He's found himself in his new career, and his projects are gaining attention. He's even thinking about moving to Florida. The ocean inspires him as much as it does me. Sent me an apology letter. I replied politely, but made it clear the past is behind me. I hold no grudge, but I don't want to revisit old wounds. My life at 68 is richer and brighter than it was at 30. I travel, paint, learn Spanish, dance salsa with my friends. I've mastered Cuban and drink mojitos guilt-free. Most importantly, I've learned to be myself. Not a wife, not a mother, not a keeper of a house, just Anna, a woman who at 68 realized life is an adventure and it's only just beginning. I close my journal, pick up my wine glass, and raise it to the sunset. To new life, I whisper, and to the courage to be happy. The ocean answers with the gentle hum of waves, and I know I made the right choice. What did you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let me know where you're reading from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. Until next time.